Today we're going to learn a little bit more about using Google Sheets to evaluate information and do some aesthetic ways of analyzing data. So in my previous videos I've gone over XLOOKUP, and right now I'm going to talk about something called If Error. So as you can see on the screen, If Error actually looks at an expression and will return a specified value if there is an error detected. All right. Now, when I use if error, this tells me that there is something I need to do next, or oh, I need to follow up with this situation. This is the formula for if error. So the value is what's being evaluated, like what am I looking at, and then the value if error is what will happen if nothing is returned or if there is an error. I generally use if error and Xlookup together. This is what the formula, or rather the function, looks like. And I have information over here about what each of those parts of the function mean. So to use if error and Xlookup, I'm going to use some sample data that I have. So over here I have some sample fake data for students from Testtown. And on this sheet, I have some sample fake data for students from Cambium. I am going to copy this sheet over to my Testtown sheet, and I'm going to go to recent because I was just working on it. All right, here we go. So I have my Testtown enrollment and my sample Cambium registration, and I want to know if all of my students on Testtown are currently enrolled in Cambium. So I'm going to use an empty column that I have. I'm just going to use this one, and I'm going to call this my comparison. So as I said before, this is the function we're going to do. So I am going to start off with if error equals if error, and then I am going to go ahead and start typing in my XLOOKUP formula. So as you can see here, I'm going to do XLOOKUP, my lookup value, lookup range, return range. So I am going to be using students' TSDS ID numbers. I want to look on this column to find them, to see if they're registered in Cambium. And then for this situation, I'm going to have it return the student's last name if they are on Cambium. That part is done. But for the if error part, I also need to include a value if error. So what do I want to happen if the student is not currently registered on Cambium? I'm going to do a comma, and then I need to do quotation marks. And I want to write down add student to Cambium in quotation marks, and then end parentheses, and press enter. Now, this tells me that my XLOOKUP formula worked because the student returned. So now I'm going to copy this. I am going to do copy and paste so that I can get it all in there. Then I can filter my results to determine which of these kiddos do I need to add to Cambium. So I'm going to clear. I just want to see the students to add to Cambium. Alright, so I know I need to add all of these students to Cambium, and I can delete the rows where I didn't have any student information. But that is how I can go ahead and determine which students were on my Testtown enrollment, so currently enrolled in my district, but not in Cambium. And now I have a handy way of telling, which one of those kids were there? And that is how we can use if error.